Muhammad. والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الميامين المهديين المعصومين المظلومين المهديين، ولعنة الله دائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من يوم عداوتهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وعادا وثمودا وقد تبين لكم من مساكنهم وزين لهم الشيطان أعمالهم فصدهم عن السبيل وكانوا مستبصرين. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. The topic that I've chosen for tonight, and I think it will continue on to tomorrow, depends how much material we get through tonight, is entitled The Responsibility of Having Insight. And one of the things that I will try to do is through the nights is kind of connect the past to the present, right? Because our general subject is about finding God and Deen in the modern age. And this verse that I've begun with from Surah Al-Ankabut, the spider, verse 38, details the story of Ad and Thamud, right? Who are these two figures that were destroyed, and their dwelling places, these communities and their dwelling places. But what's the point here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions two very important points here in Surah Al-Ankabut. Point number one is the acts of oppression that they committed, the misdeeds that they committed, the sins that they committed. زَيَّنَ لَهُمْ الشَّيْطَانَ أَعْمَالُهُمْ. So Satan made it seem to them that what they were doing was zayn. He beautified their oppression for them, right? Because it is the oppressor, or at various levels, the sinner and the oppressor. I mean, oppression is a kind of sin, but let's say a lesser kind of oppression, even when one oppresses themselves. In order for it to be palatable in that moment, one perhaps needs to cognitively disassociate from the nature of that sin. What do I mean by that? Meaning they have to convince themselves in some way that it's okay in that moment. That at that moment of sin, or that moment of oppression, somehow they justify, like Saddam Hussein, for example, he would justify what he did to the Iraqi people by saying, I'm the father of this land, I'm the father of this country, and I know best what my people need. Every dictator uses the same thing, and I know best, right? And then they'll kill and maim and imprison people in the name of this misguided, paternalistic, father-like delusion that they have, that they're the father of the nation, right? This is what Allah is referring to. زَيِّنَ لَهُمْ شَيْطَانَ أَعْمَالُهُمْ. So because they can't just outright say, you know what, I like and I want to kill people. It doesn't work that way, right? It's a lot more subtle. And very often, as we see in the case of even Fir'aun and the oppressors today, there is a part of them that thinks what they're doing is right. Even the person who attacked the home of Sayyidah Zahra, Salamullahi alayha, look at what he said. It's very interesting. Look at the psychology of it. He said, if I don't do what I'm doing now, right? Because Imam Ali and the companions were not giving allegiance to the person that was appointed at Saqifa. So this person comes to the door and threatens to light the house on fire. Baladuri narrates in Ansab al-Ashraf, one of the very famous early books of history written during the Abbasid period. Baladuri narrates here that this person comes to the door and Sayyidah Zahra says, will you light my door on fire? Baladuri was not a Shia, by the way. And this man responds by saying, your father, this is even better than what your father would have done, or this is what your father would have wanted me to do. هذا أقوى بما جاء به أبوك. Look at how he justifies that act of violence, that act of oppression, that to set fire to the house of the daughter of the Prophet. So that's the first part. The second part of this is وَكَانُوا مُسْتَبْصِرِينَ. And these are people that know the truth. Mustabsirin, they're in a state of istibsar. They know the truth. It's not like they can plead ignorance for their crimes. Right? This is a very important point. Kanu mustabsirin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they knew what they were doing. They were aware, they had intelligence, and they were exposed to the truth. Just like Ad and Thamud. They were exposed to the truth of the prophets. They had exposure, or at the very least, Allama Tabatabai goes to explain that they had that good sensibility within them, that kind of internal compass to tell them right from wrong. And coming to today's world in which we live in our modern age, I truly think that average people, when they see some of the ideas coming from the left, in terms of the ideas that are propagated in the education system, in the media, Hollywood, especially with regards to marital relationships and all those other ideas, I think a lot of people, when I meet them who aren't necessarily Muslim, who aren't necessarily, following, let's say, the Sunnah of the Prophet, there's something that doesn't sit right with them about it. Even some of my own extended family, who otherwise live very secular lives. And when we sit and we discuss about some of these, filthy things that are being propagated to people and being fed to our children, to their minds, in the school system and other places, in the media, especially in streaming services, even they say, yeah, you know what, man, people do what they want to do in their home, but why do they got to force everyone else into it? Average people, at least I think so, in my experience, and I work in the real world. I work in universities. I work with all kinds of people that aren't Muslim. Okay, so I'm not talking. I've not spent my life in the four walls of a mosque. I never left it. I'm born and raised in the West and in Canada, and that's a country that I know, and I've traveled in these countries, and that's a sense that I get. Why is this? Kanu mustabsirin. This is what Allah is referring to, even in the case of Ad and Thamud. They knew deep down, from their fitrah, as Allama Tabatabai explains in Al-Mizan, within their hearts they knew that there's something unnatural about this. There's something not right. We're playing Frankenstein and games with the creation that God has given us. And I think a lot of people feel this way. They may not voice it, they may not say it so clearly, and they may not even enunciate very clearly what it is that they're objecting for fear of being labeled. But this is very common because they have that istibsar within their hearts. They have that God-given sense to kind of pick up when things are going too far. There's a beautiful book written on this subject, an amazing book by a Princeton law professor. His name is Robert George. It's called The Clash of Orthodoxies. It's a very interesting book where he talks about the issues of conflict in America today. He's an American Catholic professor at Princeton. Talks about abortion, he talks about gender, he talks about same-sex marriage, he talks about all these issues in the book. And he tries to argue, and funny, nobody calls him an extremist and Wahhabi and terrorist, but I guess because he's not brown or black, that's probably why, or Muslim. But anyhow, that's a different story as to why he still gets to keep his job. But he writes in this book that in his view, so it's not me, Sheikh Vinay, coming and spreading this. Go look at Robert George, one of the most famous, well-known law professors, ethicists in America today at Princeton. I don't know if he's still at Princeton, but he was there for years in the law department. He writes that there's this concept known as natural law. I'm not saying it's the same as what we say is fitrah. The two are not the same. But there's this idea that the human beings and the earth is created with certain natural parameters within it. Things that are good for it and things that are bad for it. Things that are healthy and things that are unhealthy. And he approaches these issues from that perspective. And he says if people look really deep within themselves and ask themselves what is natural and what is unnatural, he doesn't think these are all just made up concepts, because what they're teaching our kids in school is that these are fabricated ideas, that everything is a fabrication, everything is a creation, everything is a product of your imagination. So if you imagine yourself to be something, you are that. And if tomorrow you want to imagine yourself to be something else, you are that. So what is my point? My point is kanu mustabsirin, is that they, Ad and Thamud, knew in their hearts right from wrong. Because Allah has put that basic understanding within us. Then we need a prophet and we need revelation to give us the specifics now, to give us the outline, to give us the kind of detailed way of life as to how we can live in this world and how we can govern ourselves in this world. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And the lesson that the verse is giving us is that people have to learn to live with the consequences of their actions, because they have this God-given ability to know right from wrong. And then on top of that, they had exposure to the revelation and prophecy. Because they had exposure to these things, they are now responsible for the intellect that God has given them. But if they don't nurture that intellect, through spiritual practice, through humility, through abstinence, through staying away from sin, through self-denial, through trying to control themselves, then that knowledge is not useful to them. But they will still be held accountable, just like Ad and Thamud. Kanu mustabsirin. Why does Allah say that at the end? Mustabsirin, meaning they knew full well what they were doing in terms of those acts of oppression and killing and polytheism and so on and so forth. They knew very well. So each of us have to decide what we do with that knowledge. What do we do with it? Tonight, I'll try to present two possible roads. Radically different ones, but two possible roads here. Option A and option B. Let's start with option A. Story A, case study A. Uthman bin Mad'un. He was a companion of the Prophet, a very great companion of the Prophet, but his story is very beautiful. It's very profound. His story of how he found Islam and how he came to Islam. We read in the narrations that he says that the Prophet, and I'll read you the Arabic just because the Arabic is so beautiful, and I'll explain why this is very important. It says, أن عثمان بن مظعون قال كنت أسلمت استحياء من رسول الله لكثرة ما كان يعرض عليه الإسلام. He says that I became a Muslim, I accepted Islam out of shyness and humility in front of the Messenger of God, because of how many times he has presented to me the message and the da'wah of Islam. Two lessons right here off the bat. Uthman bin Mad'un, even though he didn't accept Islam yet, knew that this man was sincere, that there was something worth listening to. And because of the akhlaq of the Messenger of Allah, he says, I felt this sense of shyness in front of him, this sense of profound humility, this sense of sobriety, this sense of, you know what, even if I've not yet become a Muslim, this man is so sincere in what he's teaching us, and he's not giving up. لِكَثْرَتِهِ. It's so due to the repeated da'wah, the repeated invitation to La ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah, the repeated invitation to the good life, to the pure life, to the life of righteousness. The Prophet never gave up on people. Continue to preach, continue to preach, continue to preach. Very interesting story. Then he says, one day I became a Muslim. So now he narrates the story. He says that one day I was with the Prophet and I was sitting with him and he was looking at the sky, Uthman bin Mad'un. And I turned to the Prophet and I asked him, you look like you're deep in thought. Prophet tells him, just now Jibreel came to me, the angel Gabriel came to me, and he gave me revelation, brought wahi to me. So Uthman bin Mad'un is so close to the Prophet, he hasn't yet become a Muslim. This is very interesting. Which means that the Prophet was mixing with the mushrikeen. Even when the revelation was coming to him in those moments, they were with him. And they could see how he was looking towards the sky. He would freeze for a moment, as if he didn't know what to say, they say. Because وَمَا يَنْتِقُ مِنَ الْهَوَىٰ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ, right? He doesn't speak of his desire except that it's the revelation that Allah gives him. So he paused in his conversation with Uthman bin Mad'un. He says, so I asked the Prophet, what's going on? What was he doing? And then he recited to him this part from Surah Nahl, ayah 90. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ. Allah commands justice and beautiful behavior. Uthman bin Mad'un says, the moment I heard that, something happened in my heart. And in my heart of hearts, he says, I decided to become a Muslim. And he took a shahada, said, La ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah, and he became a Muslim because of this one verse from Surah Nahl, ayah 90. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan. That Allah orders justice and beauty, ihsan, and in beauty in our actions. That justice should be accompanied with beautiful behavior and akhlaq. So he says, Islam became implanted in my heart. And his story is quite amazing. And what is the sign that we know that he was a great companion? There's only one sign that we know of everything. You want to know what it is? Only one thing we know. Because the question is he trustworthy? Okay, he became a Muslim, so what happened? Maybe he died. What happened? Maybe he died not as a true Muslim. Only one sign of his sincerity, and we'll see the same on the day of Ashura as well. I'll share it with you. In the books of fiqh, there's a discussion about mayyat, right? About the dead body being, what happens to the dead body among the things that we can't touch? It is, what is the dead body after it dies, before the ghusl? It's najis, yes. And the Prophet kissed Uthman bin Mad'un before his ghusl. And that is a sign that the kiss of the Prophet is his ticket to Jannat. And because of that, Ashab al-Rijal, the scholars of Hadith say he is thiqa. He is trustworthy because of that one kiss of the Prophet on his face. And then there's a whole discussion, oh, does an najasa transfer and all of this. But the lesson of the story here is that final kiss that the Prophet gave him was the sign that he's Jannati. And he had that search his entire life, a search for meaning. Uthman bin Mad'un was looking for something. And the amazing thing is that he didn't accept Islam on the first time from the Prophet. It took several times for the Rasulullah Khuda to convince him. And it wasn't even Rasulullah Khuda who did it. It was the wahi from Allah. In that moment. And the spirit of justice and beauty brought Uthman bin Mad'un to Islam. So if the story of life is our search for meaning, for understanding what's out there and what it means to me and what my responsibilities are, then this is an endless story. And Uthman bin Mad'un was somebody from inside his heart, even before he became a Muslim, knew there's something wrong with my society. There's something not right that's going on. Although I have a tribe and I have money and I'm with my friends and all of this, but he knew deep down there's something not right with Arab society at this time. We need justice. We need fair play. And we need that to be coupled with compassion and mercy, which is ihsan. And he had not yet become a Muslim. So what was it in his heart that brought him to Islam? It was that natural law, that natural inclination, that natural compass within him that Allah refers to as fitrah. And each and every one of us have it, but the question is, what do we do with it now? Where do we go now? That's the question. Uthman bin Mad'un did something known as tahqiq of his religion. What does that mean? I don't want to use big words and people don't understand, but certain words are important to understand, and I'll tell you why as a teacher. Because they encapsulate an entire concept. Okay? Tahqiq is from the word haq, means truth. Right? Haqqaqa yuhaqqiq. Haq means, what does haq mean? Truth, right. Truth in Arabic. Tahqiq means to make the truth real and alive. Because haq on its own is not very useful without tahqiq. Arabic language is very profound, brothers. This is a second form. Haqqaqa yuhaqqiqu tahqiqa. Okay? The second form of the verb in Arabic morphology indicates the coming to life of haq. What Uthman bin Mad'un did, he was searching for the haq. And the moment he became a Muslim, he did tahqiq. Because now the haq became alive in his life. And then the crowning moment of the tahqiq was the kiss of the Prophet at his death. So he had a spiritual awakening. This state of istibsar, awakening. He knew the truth. And I truly believe today, if we just present the messages of Islam with justice and love, many, many, many will accept it. Many. Because people know the way things are now are not right. Injustice, inequality, the family being, I don't even know what it is now. It's some kind of Frankenstein experiment of, I don't know, Hollywood and the money makers of that whole industry, right? Men are like wives, and wives are like husbands, and it's all just completely a complete clown show. But people in their heart of hearts know, when all the chips are down, that there's something about the human being that needs more structure. It needs a nizam. And if we present Islam in this way, in this logical way of natural and unnatural, many people may not accept it, but many people do. It is still the fastest growing religion in the world, as we know, especially after October 7th. People are becoming Muslim all the time because they see that spirit of justice and mercy. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So there are 3 take-homes that I have for you right now. 3 simple take-home messages. Uthman bin Mad'un was successful because he was curious. He was curious. If you're not curious, you're not going to get anywhere. And curiosity is something that has to be sparked. Something that God puts within us, but if we don't constantly explore, we'll lose that curiosity. Curiosity for the truth, to know more, to get closer to God, to understand the meaning of this world and what's behind it. Number 2, he listened to the voice in his heart. Like I said last night, just like that person that stole that bread night after night, he knew it was wrong. He knew, right? He said that stealing that bread, the enjoyment he got from that extra loaf, and I don't know if it was white or brown or whole wheat or sourdough, I'm not entirely sure. But in those olden days, I think it was very unrefined, right? It was the kind of stuff that's probably pretty good for you. But the enjoyment of eating that bread was overshadowed by the guilt that he felt that he was stealing from his fellow brothers. And he was taking extra Fatiha than he needed to. They said that we only have enough one for each one person in the majlis. But every night he would take a little extra samosa, an extra snack. But he listened to that voice within him. He listened to it. We have to listen to it. When we don't, there is profound and disastrous consequences for not listening to that voice. And this majlis and those majalis like this are an opportunity for us to listen to that voice. And we see in Karbala this example all the time, and the story ending with Imam Hussein kissing that person who listened to their voice, isn't it? And number 3, he observed the message of the Prophet and the character of the Prophet, but he was not worshipping the Prophet himself. As Imam Ali says, "I'raful haq ta'rifu ahla." Know the truth and you will know its people. Know the truth and you will know its people. He knew that this person embodied all of these godly values that were already spoken about in the Bible and the Torah. In the Old Testament and the New Testament, he knew that. They knew of these things. So when they thought of Jesus and Abraham and Noah and Solomon and David, Dawood and Job and all of these prophets, alayhim afdal salatu wasalam, he saw all of these khisal and attributes in the Prophet. He saw them in him. So he had an idea of what the truth was. Maybe not a complete picture, but he had an idea of what the truth was. He wasn't chasing after fads or hobbies or marketing slogans. He was chasing after the truth, which he knew was in here. And that's how he found Islam, and that's how he came to Islam, and that's the state that he died in. And all of us need to have these three things in order to be successful. And we will be held accountable by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the implementation and exercising of these faculties that Allah has given us. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thus, knowledge is the greatest blessing that God has given us. Yet we read in the ziyarat of Ahlul Bayt a different story. Now we're going to case study 2, which we'll finish tomorrow. But we'll begin it tonight. Let us go to the ziyarah of Ahlul Bayt, which now tells us another story. Story number 1 is a happy. As I said, you want the good news or the bad news? So we began with the good news. Now we get to the bad news. That's in the ziyarah. لُعِنَتْ أُمَّةٍ قَتَلَتْكُمْ. This is a ziyarah from Imam Sadiq for Imam Hussein to be recited in Karbala. One of the most authentic of the ziyarat that we have, known as Ziyarat al-Mutlaqa. It's in Mafatih al-Jinan, but narrated in Al-Kafi and the many early sources. I have a book coming out later this year on this. لُعِنَتْ أُمَّةٍ قَتَلَتْكُمْ. That cursed is the community, meaning God's mercy is taken away from the community that killed you. Or Hussein ibn Ali, right? Or Ahlul Bayt in general. وَأُمَّةٌ خَالَفَتْكُمْ. And the ummah that opposed you, turned against you. وَأُمَّةٌ جَحَدَتْ وِلَايَتَكُمْ. And the ummah that fought against your divinely given authority, your wilaya. وَأُمَّةٌ ظَاهَرَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ. And the ummah that pretended that they loved you. ظَاهَرَتْ. Dhahara meaning when you're with somebody, you really don't like them, but you just kind of go along to get along because you don't want them to know that you don't like them. Meanwhile, na'udhu billah, that person, I don't want to say you as him, someone here, so that person is plotting against the other person. It's a very nasty, very dirty way of doing business. Kind of like what we see today, isn't it? All the political dealings, global affairs. Not much has changed from 1400 years. It's the same story, different chapter. وَأُمَّةٌ ظَاهَرَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ وَأُمَّةٌ شَهِدَتْ. And the ummah that bore witness that Ali is the wali of Allah. That same ummah that bore witness that Hassan wal Hussein Sayyid al-Shababi Ahl al-Jannah. That same ummah that witnessed Hussein minni wa ana min Hussein. Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. That same ummah. Right? That same ummah. Shahidat, Imam says. They didn't only accept, they witnessed, they gave allegiance to this. They swore to be true. وَلَمْ تُسْتَشْهَدْ. But they didn't follow up this promise with support. Look at the Arabic language. Shahidat وَلَمْ تُسْتَشْهَدْ. It's like they knew the truth, but they never did tahqiq of it. They never made it real. It's like fascinating about being a Muslim or fascinating about loving Ali, but never actually praying Dua Kumain and reflecting over anything that he's taught about staying away from sin. So it's just a fascination, and that's all. Not even a fascination, just a simple knowledge. Shahidat. وَلَمْ تُسْتَشْهَدْ. But when it came down to it, they didn't bring that witnessing to life. لم تستشهد. Alhamdulillah alladhi ja'ala nar mathwahum. Here the Imam says, all praise is due to Allah who made hell, the fire, their resting place. وَبِئْسَ الْوِرْدِ الْوَارِدِينَ. And the place, and a very torturous place for them to go to. وَبِئْسَ الْوِرْدِ الْمَوْرُودِ. This is the case of Umar ibn Sa'd, right here. We're going to begin by talking about his father, because we can't understand him unless you speak about his father. I'll introduce his father a bit, and tomorrow night we'll talk more about him. And when you read this story and you look at what's going on in today's world, it's like a mirror image. Literally, it's like you just think, wait a second, am I reading this on Twitter? Or history human beings don't change much in their hypocrisy. But in order to understand Umar ibn Sa'd, we have to go to his father, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas was his father. And the apple, Umar, did not fall far, far from the tree, unfortunately. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas is a very famous Muslim. According to others, he has been guaranteed Jannah. He's from among the people that the Prophet allegedly guaranteed heaven. And it was partly Umar ibn Sa'd's fame came from who his father was, right? Because why did Muawiyah like Umar ibn Sa'd? Muawiyah partly liked Umar ibn Sa'd because his father was not the best friend of Ali ibn Abi Talib. You have to understand that Ashura did not happen in a vacuum. Right? There were certain events and things that had to happen in order to allow for the killing of Hussein ibn Ali. So, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas becomes a Muslim around the age of 18. He was a very important person. Umar ibn al-Khattab put him in the Shura, right? After, to elect the next caliph. After Umar's death, there was a Shura. There was a council that appointed the third Khalifa. So, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas is one of those people on that council, that Shura council. Ali was a person, and there were other people on that council as well. He held back his decision of who he would choose until the very last minute, and he chose Uthman over Ali. He did not believe Ali was worthy of being the leader of the Muslims, although he was at Ghadir. Anyways, so he was from the Umayyad clan as well. And he's what we would describe as the Switzerland of those days. He was neutral. He called himself a neutral party. And what's an example of this? Finally, when Imam Ali becomes the fourth Khalifa and all the Muslims gather around him, he wasn't appointed by somebody. The Muslims agreed upon him that they wanted him to be the leader. One of the first people that Imam Ali reached out to was who? Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. Because Imam Ali salamullahi alayhi knew that he couldn't be successful politically speaking. Of course, in the eyes of Allah, Imam is Imam. But politically speaking, he needed the big shots of the time to back his leadership. Otherwise, Medina, he's going to have problems. So obviously, he says, okay, Sa'd, you promised. This is what the Muslims wanted. We're following everything. You are fully backing Uthman to the, fully. Now, I expect the same from you. You've promised it. He says, okay, fine. Then, listen to this. This is very, very, very interesting. When Imam Ali is being fought, Imam Ali turns to Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas and he tells him, okay, that you've given bay'ah, you pledged allegiance, now come. He says, I don't know if you are right or Muawiyah is right. Oh, now you don't know. What a crafty guy, huh? Really slippery customer, this one. He just finds a way to slip right out. Right? Because he wouldn't come out straight to say he doesn't like Ali ibn Abi Talib. But he wanted to find a way by saying, I'm unsure, so I'm just going to pray to God for both of you at home, but you're technically both wrong. So I'll ask Allah to forgive Ali and Allah to forgive Muawiyah or Aisha and Talha and Zubayr and so on and so forth. What a joke. But apparently he is guaranteed Jannah. Right? He's one of the people guaranteed. He's like a rukun of Islam almost, Ma'soom in a sense, because he's been guaranteed paradise. Not ma'soom in a religious sense, but I mean in the sense that he's so great that he's Jannati. I don't know how all this math adds up, but naturally the son didn't fall, as I said, fall far from the father. Where did he learn all this trickery from? Where did he learn all this dirty politics from? Backstabbing, false promises, false love, false smiles. Oh yeah, Umar ibn Sa'd was a pro at this. We'll talk about this tomorrow, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And we're going to see where he fits into the story of Muslim ibn Aqil now tonight. Muslim ibn Aqil left Medina around the 15th of Ramadan, but he does not arrive in Kufa until some time of Shawwal. It was quite a journey. And there's a whole story of that journey, and we don't have time to go through the journey of Muslim ibn Aqil. But when he arrives in Kufa, he reads out a letter of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam to the people of Kufa. Now this letter is extremely important, mu'mineen. He says, I have sent you Ibn Ammi, my cousin, wa thiqati wa ahl bayti. This is very important. Look at the status of Muslim ibn Aqil. He said, I sent you my cousin, I sent you my trusted one, meaning my trusted representative, and I sent you someone from my family, Ahlul Bayt. If he sees that you are united, mujtami'un, he will write back to me immediately, informing me that you are ready for me. Then the Imam says, and you shall know there is no Imam illa qama bil haqq. There is no Imam except the Imam stands with haqq. Look at what the Imam is saying here. And there is no substitute for this. That's it, period. Haqq ma'a Hussein. The people began to cry, but a problem happened, mu'mineen. Bashir bin Nu'man was the governor at that time. And Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad was where? In Basra, as we know. Bashir bin Nu'man was a weak governor for the Umayyads, and he had to be replaced. So they got rid of him. And they brought in Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. With Ibn Ziyad coming to Kufa, the situation would now change drastically. This guy was, if Umar ibn Sa'ad was a tricky one, Ibn Ziyad was a psychopath, straight up psychopath. We can talk about him another night. His psycho profile is something else altogether. Ibn Ziyad comes and he is not now playing games. He is a zero-sum game. He is ready to kill, murder, pillage, and do whatever needs to be done in order to stop Muslim ibn Aqil alayhi salam. Muslim was staying at the house of Mukhtar. From the house of Mukhtar, he went to Hani ibn Urwa's house, right? As we read in the sources. But prior to that, he received 12,000 signatures. Some say up to 24,000, but several thousand signatures he received. So when he heard that Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad arrived, as we said, he left the house of Mukhtar to go to the house of Hani ibn Urwa. Radiallahu anhu. May Allah be pleased with him, because Hani was also martyred, as we know. And while he was out at the house of Hani ibn Urwa, the troops discovered that he's there. Hani refused to give up Muslim ibn Aqil. We know that Hani was then imprisoned, tortured, and executed. He says, he swore to protect the Messenger of Allah. He says, I swear I will be a true helper. This is how he died. You know that? He refused to give up Muslim ibn Aqil. This is the taste of true loyalty of a friend. Remember that ummah that showed their shahadat, they tested, they gave witnessing, but they didn't live up to it. Hani swore to protect Muslim. And at his death, he says, how can I abandon the one that I've sworn to protect? Hani was tortured, just to let you know. They also dragged him to the street, and they, according to some narrations, crucified him on wood. They nailed him to wood in a garbage dump. Imagine the pain he went through because he was protecting his Mawla Muslim ibn Aqil alayhi salam. All of this because he was a Safir of Hussein ibn Ali. Muslim now has to switch houses, right? He now ends up in the house of Tu'a, the mother of Ash'ath bin Qais. We need to understand the story of Muslim ibn Aqil tonight, right? He's now switches houses again, and he's getting betrayed over and over and over again. I mean, this is a sad story. Remember, they signed signatures. Now he's getting reported on by everybody in town. I mean, it's a terrible situation. Wherever he goes, it's a spy. Kind of like in today's world, what's going on, huh? Yeah, he can't find any safe place to stay. The son of Tu'a reports him now after swearing and promising. Because in Arab culture, if you have a guest, that guest, you should give your life for that person. If they're a mu'min, you should give your life for them. Because it's your job, it's our job to protect our guests. Part of the karamat of the Arab, the honor of the Arab, is their guest. Like, that means you die for your guest. Like, because he's in your care, she is in your care, you must protect him. Her son betrayed Muslim ibn Aqil. And now the troops arrive at her house. And it was too late. Muslim was now ambushed. There was not much that he could do, but he stood like a lion. And he fought. If we read the history of how he fought on his feet, literally from one corner to the other, Muslim ibn Aqil is fighting against an entire army, an entire infantry that are chasing after him in Kufa. Bakr bin Humran hits the mouth of Muslim ibn Aqil. Right? The tradition tells us, the riwayah says that it cut his upper lip. Bakr bin Humran then had his head struck by Muslim ibn Aqil. The traditions tell us that Muslim killed up to 180 enemies. If this is the shuja'at of Muslim ibn Aqil, what is the bravery of Hussein ibn Ali? If this is the bravery of the Safir of Hussein, the representative of Hussein ibn Ali, what is the bravery of the Mawla and the Imam? Ibn Ziyad yelled at his troops and he says, he is one man alone. Are you scared of him? Ibn Ziyad now begins to order them to throw rocks at Muslim ibn Aqil. They pummeled Muslim with rocks, hitting his body and his face. Every rock he took was for the sake of his master Hussein ibn Ali. And Muslim then says, Al-atash qad balagha minni, that I'm feeling thirsty, because he's fighting. And he's getting exhausted now. They then finally surround him and they begin to stab him. They take him as a prisoner. Muslim ibn Aqil is now crying. Umar bin Ubaidullah bin Abbas turns to him and he says, why are you crying, Muslim? Muslim says, I'm not crying for me, I'm crying for my Mawla, Hussein ibn Ali. Because now I know what has happened. But I had already sent news to Hussein to come to Kufa. I already told Hussein, salamullahi alayhi, to come to Kufa. And do you know who else was present? Umar ibn Sa'ad. And at his final moments, Muslim ibn Aqil requested that he can deliver and ask for his final wishes. This will break your heart, mu'mineen. He's in the court of Ibn Ziyad. He's stabbed. He's bleeding. His face is all disheveled. And he sees Umar ibn Sa'ad. There was a family connection between the two of them. He turns to Umar ibn Sa'ad and he says, allow me to give my final wasiyat to you. And the wasiyat of a Muslim is sacred. It's muqaddas, mu'mineen, isn't it? Your final death wish is something that is sacred. It's holy. You don't break that. Umar ibn Sa'd agrees to take the final wishes of Muslim ibn Aqil. Muslim asks him for three things. Request number one is, I ask you to settle my debts. I have some debts that I have to pay. Before you execute me, I need to know that you, Umar ibn Sa'd, will settle my financial debts, because we don't want to die with debts. That's why we should be paying our debts before we die. Number two, he said, allow for me to have a dignified burial, because he knew Banu Umayyah were nasty people. Things that they've done in the past were very barbaric. Give me a dignified burial. And number three, send word to Hussein not to come to Kufa. Umar ibn Sa'd swore to Allah that he would keep this true, that he would keep this secret. As soon as he meets Ibn Ziyad, he tells Ibn Ziyad all three things. Ibn Ziyad says, as for the first two, we don't mind. But number three, we are not sending message to Hussein ibn Ali. So now Muslim is betrayed. Hussein is betrayed. And now they prepare to kill Muslim ibn Aqil. Muslim now says, Ana arju an yarzuqani Allah shahada. He says, I hope and I ask Allah to give me martyrdom. Ala yaday asharrul bariya. That I will be martyred in front of the most evil of people. He then was taken to the top of the castle. He began doing istighfar. Imagine the final moments of Muslim ibn Aqil. He's saying, Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. He keeps saying this over and over again and saying, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He keeps reciting salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And then finally they kill him. They throw him off the top of the castle. They behead him and throw him off the top of the castle. Then they drag his body through the streets of Kufa. And then they also nail his body to wood. And this is a story of the Safir of Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam. But this story would not end, mu'mineen. As we know, the family of Aqil and Muslim ibn Aqil had many shuhada in Karbala and even after Karbala. We have riwayat in Ma'ali al-Sibtain and other places that there were two boys by the name of Muhammad and Ibrahim, who were the two children, Tiflana Muslim, right? The two children of Muslim ibn Aqil. Muslim ibn Aqil handed them to Shurayh al-Qadi to care for them. It was known that these two boys existed. So Ibn Ziyad ordered that they be found. The boys saw Shurayh ibn Qadi crying. They asked Shurayh, why are you crying? Shurayh turns to them and says, Qutila abukuma, your father has been killed. And the boys now begin to cry, but what do they say? This will break your hearts in half, mu'mineen. They say, wa abata, wa khurbata. Oh, our father, we are now estranged. Wabata. And they begin to cry. Eventually, Shurayh had to give up these children to another trust. They were then caught and put into prison by Ibn Ziyad. They spent some time in prison. The jailer, one of the names of the jailer was Mashkur. He says, when he was ordered to kill them, he says that you have killed their father. You have made these two boys yatim. What more do you now want with them? How can I execute children? What is wrong with you? And reliable riwayat narrate that the children would escape prison. This is probably how they would find their way all the way in Musayyib, so far away. Ibn Ziyad had put a 10,000 dinar bounty on their head. Eventually they would be discovered by a man. But this, my dear brothers and sisters, will break your heart. This man approaches them and he asks them, who are you? These little children, Muhammad and Ibrahim, turn to him and say, if we tell you who we are, do you swear that you will not tell anybody? Do you promise? Do you promise? He says, yes, I promise. So they tell him, out of innocence, they're just children, right? So they tell him out of their innocence of their heart who they are.